We're going to begin this evening in Genesis chapter 17. Chapter 15. That's where we're going to begin. Verse 1, after these things the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, for I am thy shield and thine exceeding great reward. This is Abram meeting God in a different form. This is Abram meeting God as El Shaddai. There are different aspects of the very character and the nature of God. And here he is with what you might say is the female aspect of God. Because El Shaddai was in the Jewish concept, the many-breasted one. This is the one that can succor and supply that which we need for growth and development. So it's like that female aspect of God. He met him at this particular point in his life. And it says, Fear not, Abram, I am your shield and your great reward. Many people are wondering what their reward is for trusting Christ and for walking in the ways of God. What is your reward? Well, many people think it's heaven. You know, that if you give your heart to Jesus, believe he died for you, etc., and all of those things, then you are going to go to heaven when you die. And that's like your reward. But you'll notice what God said, what El Shaddai said to Abram. He said, I am your shield, and I am your reward. That's all we need. That is all that we need. God is our reward. And when he comes to us, he fulfills himself in us. And he becomes all that we need. So Abram said to the Lord God, what will you give me? Because I don't have any children. I don't have any children. And you giving me all this stuff? You tell me I'm going to inherit the promised land? In fact, you've given it to me by covenant. And what am I going to do with it? Because I've got no offspring, I've got no children, I've got no seed to leave as these things as an inheritance to. So he said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to work this out for you, God. And what I'm going to do is this. You see, I've got a man here that's my slave, and he's dedicated to me, and he loves me, and he's been so wonderful and helpful, that I'm going to make him my son, and then all that I have, he will inherit. God said, no, you won't. You see, you don't do anything until you ask his opinion first. And so it says here, well, you've given me no seed. And so in verse 5, he said, Abram, come on out of your tent. And I want you to look up and count the stars. And Abraham said, there's too many, Lord. I can't. Too many stars up there. Millions and millions and millions. And then when they build a bigger telescope, they add some more millions and trillions and whatever goes beyond that. And then they build a biggest telescope, and they got more and more and more. I don't think there's any end to it out there somehow. The number of stars, the Milky Way, would be like the head of a pin at 100 yards by comparison with the entire universe. It is so big. So he says to Abram, your seed will be as the stars of heaven. And he's saying to you today, your seed will be as the stars of heaven. Now, we have not even investigated the idea that we are to reproduce. We haven't got into this yet. We're not even convinced that we are going to reproduce. Well, I'm going to tell you tonight, God said, this is my plan for you. Part of that plan of God for you is that you are going to reproduce, because your seed, and your seed is to be as the stars of heaven. That's for every one of us. Think about it. As the stars of heaven. What, in number? Yes, sir. But not just in number. Quality. The heavens. These are heavenly bodies, if you like. And your seed is going to have a heavenly quality. And you will not be able to count them. Well, that's wonderful. Now, you see, I can believe God. Why? Because I read in this book that the day is coming when every knee will bow to Jesus Christ. Every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Wow. Everyone. You mean 6.6 billion people on the earth today? I mean, that was last count. It's maybe closer to 6.7 now, I'm not sure. Because you see, the Chinese, you know, there's 1.2 billion of them. Just think about it. And so the population of the earth is increasing. But every knee, every tongue is going to bow. Oh God, where are they going to come from? Who's going to birth those children? Who's going to birth those people into the family of God? Who's going to do that? Oh, that's your task. That's my task. That's our responsibility for every one of God's children to reproduce. I want to tell you, every one of you here tonight, including all the men, all of us, we are all virgins in the eyes of God. A virgin is simply somebody who's never had a child or never had contact with a man, because it applies basically only to the women. But see, we're all virgins. Why? Because we are all to reproduce. So Abraham goes home and says, Sarah, because she's 80 years old, Sarah, God's just told me that we're going to have a child. He didn't mention the rest of the stars. He just said, we're just going to have a child. Well, that shocked her enough. She said, Abraham, you've been dreaming again. No, he said, God told me. And I don't think he told her about the stars at that point. But anyway, God said we're going to have a son. And so she said, well, of course, you know, God's forgotten how he made the woman. He's forgotten that at 80 years of age, the machinery is creaking a little bit. And, you know, it doesn't function so well. I mean, you can imagine, can't you, an 80-year-old woman pushing a pram down the road there, you know, and the neighbours come like, oh, is that your granddaughter or grandson? No, this is my son. What? She's 80 years old. So she said, well, look, I'll tell you what we do. You see, God has forgotten, so we're going to help God out. You know, that's good of them, wasn't it? You know, it's good to think of people that want to help God. You know, they love him so much, they're going to help him if he gets into trouble. Well, he doesn't understand about women, so we're going to help him. I'll tell you what to do, Abram. You can use a surrogate mother.